The Pittsburgh Steelers head down to Jerry World on Sunday to take on the Dallas Cowboys. BETDAQ currently has Pittsburgh installed as a 1-point favorite in this game. 44 is the total. This is a big game for both teams. A lot is on the line. Pittsburgh at 7-6 is tied for the final wildcard spot in the AFC with Cincinnati. Dallas has an identical 7-6 record. They're a game back of the New York Giants for the lead in the NFC East. The Cowboys are tied with Washington, a game back of the Giants, also a game back of Seattle and Chicago for the final wildcard spot in the NFC. So make or break for both of these teams on Sunday. Well, maybe not break, especially for Pittsburgh. The Steelers could lose this game as long as they beat Cincinnati next week. They could still make the playoffs. Still, a big game nonetheless, a huge game for Dallas. Pittsburgh, we mentioned, a short road favorite here. You know, both these teams very similar, and their similarities go beyond their record. Very inconsistent. These teams have been very tough to predict this season. The Steelers have lost to teams like Oakland, Tennessee, just lost at home to San Diego last week, but they've beaten some really good teams. They just beat the New York Giants on the road a couple of weeks ago. Pittsburgh's actually 3-0 this season against the NFC East, looking to make it a perfect sweep against that division on Sunday. And the Cowboys, if you've seen them play, I mean, you know, they are consistently inconsistent. They seem to fall behind in every single game they play. Last week was no exception. Came from 9 points down with 7 minutes left to pull out a 1-point road win over the Cincinnati Bengals. It was a huge win for Dallas. Dallas has actually won 4 out of the last 5 games. That might surprise you because when you think of the NFL's hottest teams, the Cowboys might not be on the tip of your tongue. Maybe it's because their one loss was a very public loss, that Thanksgiving night loss to Washington when they again fell way behind. Maybe it's because those 4 wins, their last 4 wins, 2 of them have come against the Philadelphia Eagles, who everybody is beating nowadays. One of them was in overtime against the Cleveland Browns. The other one, we mentioned that impressive 1-point road win last week against Cincinnati. So not a whole lot of people are buying into the Cowboys, I don't think, right now. And count me among those people. You know, early this season, I thought that Dallas might have had the potential. I mean, sounds like a broken record. You could say this about the Cowboys for the last 2, 3, 4 years. They look like they might have had the potential to be an elite team, but seemed to shoot themselves in the foot. Nothing good ever seemed to happen for them. You know, it seems like we always tell the same story about the Dallas Cowboys, but that's been the case again this year. Hard to put your finger on exactly what the problem is because you look at the stats and they look pretty good. I mean, Dallas 3rd in the NFL in pass yards per game, 292 pass yards per game they're averaging, and the big weakness of this Cowboys team last year was the secondary, but they took steps to address that in the offseason, acquiring Brandon Carr from the Kansas City Chiefs, drafting Morris Claiborne out of LSU, and it's worked. It's paid immediate dividends. Dallas has been a top 10 pass defense all year, 8th in the NFL against the pass right now. So it's tough to figure out exactly why Dallas seems to fall behind every week, exactly why they seem to lose to inferior teams sometimes, or teams that you think have inferior talent. But we just know that it continues to happen. They're consistently inconsistent, so they are what they are, and I don't see why we should expect anything different than that on Sunday. Now, Dallas, they might not want to fall behind Pittsburgh by 2 scores like they have been, because Pittsburgh's defense, number 1 in the NFL in yards per game allowed, number 1 pass defense in the NFL. Pittsburgh only allows 169 pass yards per game. So when the Dallas offense is on the field, it is going to be strength versus strength. Because as we mentioned, Dallas 3rd in the NFL in pass yards per game. Pittsburgh leads the NFL in pass defense. Be very interesting to see who gets the better of that matchup. You know, Dallas has racked up a lot of yards and points this season against some of the NFL's worst defenses, so I don't know if they're going to be going up and down the field on Pittsburgh on Sunday. Like I said, I think it's very important the Cowboys do not fall behind early like they have been. Now, the Cowboys have been a terrible team to back at home this season, 0-6 against the spread at home. And the Steelers, they lost last week to San Diego. I know that was a surprising loss, but there's been no better team over the last couple of years in the NFL responding from a loss. Pittsburgh 11-2 against the spread their last 13 games following a loss. This is a prideful veteran team. They know what it takes to be successful. Mike Tomlin, one of the best coaches in the NFL. So you probably see where I'm going with this. I mean, it's a little bit of a tough game to call, I think, because both teams very inconsistent, and I've wanted to buy into Dallas all year. I really have. I've backed Dallas several times this season. They haven't treated me too good, but on Sunday, I have a little more trust in Pittsburgh. Ben Roethlisberger's 2nd game back from injury now. Even though they lost last week to San Diego, Roethlisberger was healthy enough to throw for 285 yards. And this Pittsburgh offense, over the last couple of years, they've evolved into a pass-first offense. Ben Roethlisberger throwing it down the field to Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders. That is the bread and butter of this Steelers offense. Now that Roethlisberger's back, I believe they're going to return to that. Of course, when he was out and Charlie Batch and Byron Leftwich were playing, they were not able to get it downfield to those receivers. I look for Pittsburgh, even though Dallas has been playing better in the secondary this year, I look for Pittsburgh to have success down the field. I think they're going to limit the Dallas offense, maybe not smother them, even though the Dallas offense was pretty well smothered for 3.5 quarters by Cincinnati last week. But I expect Dallas at home to approach 20 points in this game. Not sure it's going to be enough, though. I do lean towards Pittsburgh -1 in this spot.